Welcome back to Learn English Naturally.
And we're back for another deep dive.
This time, we're tackling something you can use whether you're at home or abroad.
Right. Asking for and giving directions in English.
And something a lot of English learners struggle with, I think.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes even simple interactions can feel intimidating.
For sure.
So that's what we're going to break down today.
Absolutely. Where should we start?
Well, like with anything, we need a good foundation.
Okay. Makes sense?
That means starting with vocabulary.
Right. You got to know the words for all those streets and avenues and everything.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people get confused with street versus avenue.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Can you explain the difference?
It's a bit of a history thing, but in a lot of cities, streets go east to west, and avenues go north and south.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, you'll sound like a local if you know that one.
I like it. Okay, so we've got those basic words down.
So what's next?
Well, now we need the words to actually tell someone which way to go.
Of course. We're talking left, right, and straight ahead.
Right. Pretty simple, but important to get those right.
Oh, absolutely.
But what about when it's not just going straight?
Right. So that's when we use some phrases like around the corner,
Okay.
or next to, or across from something.
Yeah.
They just give a bit more detail and make things easier to find.
So it's kind of like using landmarks.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if you don't know any landmarks?
Well, you just got to get a little creative with your descriptions then.
Okay.
Like, it's the building with the blue awning.
I see.
Or look for the shop with the big teddy bear.
Yeah, I got it.
Just be descriptive so the person knows what to look for.
Okay, so we've got those basics.
Now it's time for the phrases you can use to actually ask for directions.
Perfect.
First thing is to be polite, so always start with, excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
Then you can say something like, could you tell me how to get to? Or maybe, I'm looking for, could you point me in the right direction?
I like those. So polite.
Exactly. You don't want to just demand directions.
Right. You're asking for help.
And even if you're feeling lost, keep your tone friendly.
Right.
People are usually happy to help if you're nice.
So true.
All right, so what if you ask for directions but then get a little confused?
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
Well, don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Got it.
Just say, could you repeat that, please?
Okay.
Or, could you speak a little slower, please?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's no big deal to ask for help understanding.
I think a lot of people worry about sounding silly.
Oh, but you're showing you're really trying.
That's true.
Okay, so we've covered asking for directions.
Now what about the other side? Giving directions.
How do we make sure they're clear and helpful?
Yeah.
Well, it's all about clear, concise instructions.
Okay.
You want to give those step-by-step directions like you're building a roadmap.
Got it.
So we've already said some key phrases like go straight for 2 blocks or turn left at the traffic light. Well, you can use walk past the bank and it'll be on your right.
Yeah.
Just keep it nice and simple.
All right.
And when there aren't a lot of landmarks,
Yeah.
you got to get creative, just like when you're asking for directions.
Okay, so describe things.
Exactly. Like, it's the building with the big blue awning.
Yeah.
Or it's the shop with the giant teddy bear in the window.
So just use those visuals to make it easier to find.
Exactly. Whether you're asking for directions or giving them, it's all about painting a picture with words.
I like that.
And, even when you are speaking the same language,
Yeah.
it's important to use those clear directions.
Right.
It's good communication and keeps everyone from getting lost.
That's so true. Nobody wants to be lost.
Okay, so now we've talked about the phrases and the vocabulary. What else is important?
What else?
Well, pronunciation is a big one.
Oh, yeah?
Even if you're using the right words, if you don't say them clearly,
Yeah.
it can lead to all sorts of problems.
Yeah, are there any words that tend to be harder to say?
Left and right can be tricky for some people.
Oh, I can imagine that. Do you have any tips for saying them?
Yeah, for sure. So for left, think about that E sound at the beginning.
Okay.
Almost like left T, and with right, you want to emphasize the R and the T.
I see.
Just practice them slowly until they feel comfortable.
What else should we think about when we're practicing?
Intonation and pacing can make a big difference too.
Okay.
If you speak too fast or mumble,
Right.
it's going to be hard to understand.
That makes sense.
So especially when you're asking for directions,
Yeah.
make sure you're speaking clearly and not rushing.
Okay, and don't forget to be polite.
Oh, absolutely. Excuse me, it goes a long way.
You keep saying that.
Well, it's important.
I get it.
And, even with good pronunciation, things can still go wrong.
Absolutely. Happens all the time. Do you have any funny stories?
Oh, I have one. It happened when I was traveling in Italy.
Oh, really?
I was trying to get to this little village up in the Tuscan hills.
Sounds lovely.
I had the name written down, but
Yeah.
Italian pronunciation.
Oh, yeah.
So many rolling R's
It can be tricky.
and all those double consonants.
Right.
So I asked this local for directions,
Yeah.
but I totally messed up the name of the village.
Oh, no?
It was supposed to be this beautiful Italian name,
Uh-huh.
but it came out sounding like something you'd order on a pizza.
Oh, no. Did they understand you?
Not a chance.
What happened?
They just kind of looked at me and shrugged.
Oh, gosh.
I ended up using a lot of hand gestures,
I see.
pointing at my map,
Uh-huh.
and the few Italian words I knew.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, I got my point across.
That's good.
Yeah, we all laughed about it in the end.
That's a great story.
But it just goes to show how important pronunciation is.
Absolutely. You really got to make yourself understood.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect,
Yeah.
but just making sure people can follow what you're saying.
Right. It's easy to get hung up on trying to sound like a native speaker.
Yeah, for sure. But the goal is just clear communication.
Right.
And, there's actually a cool connection between pronunciation and memory.
Oh, really?
When you practice those sounds,
Yeah.
it helps you remember the words better.
That makes sense.
Like you're making those pathways in your brain stronger.
So we should really be saying the words out loud when we're learning.
Exactly. Don't just read them silently.
Okay.
Say them, practice the sounds, get the rhythm and intonation down.
Got it. That's a good tip.
All right, so we've talked a lot about asking for directions.
Uh-huh.
Now let's focus on giving directions.
Okay. Sounds good.
What should we keep in mind when we're guiding someone somewhere? Well, just like when you're asking for directions,
Mhm.
clarity is super important.
Okay.
Nice, simple language that's easy to understand.
Right. We want to give them a clear roadmap.
Exactly.
So we talked about go straight for 2 blocks
Yeah.
and turn left at the traffic light.
Uh-huh. What are some other helpful phrases? Well, you can use walk past the bank,
Yeah.
or it's the building with the red door on your left,
I see.
or you'll see it right after the park.
So just giving those clear markers.
Exactly.
But even with clear instructions, people can still get lost.
Oh, for sure.
So what can we do to make our directions extra clear?
Well, one good trick is to use visual cues.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, turn right at the next street,
Uh-huh.
you could say, turn right at the next street. It's the one with the big red mailbox on the corner.
I see.
You're giving them something specific to look for.
Right. Those little details that help them remember.
Exactly.
And it's like creating a mental map with visual markers.
Exactly. And if you're giving a lot of instructions,
Yeah.
break them down into smaller chunks.
Okay.
So instead of giving this long list all at once,
Uh-huh.
pause after each step to make sure they're following along.
Yeah. That's good. So it's not too overwhelming.
Right.
Just bite-sized pieces of information.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to use your hands,
Oh, yeah. Gestures are great.
especially if there's a language barrier.
Sometimes you just got to point.
Exactly.
And that actually brings up nonverbal communication in general,
Right.
even when we are speaking the same language.
Yeah.
Our body language and our tone of voice can communicate a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not just about the words.
Exactly.
We should really be thinking about those nonverbal cues, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure our body language matches what we're saying.
Wow. We've covered a lot today.
We have.
Vocabulary, phrases, pronunciation, even nonverbal communication.
It's a lot to think about for something like asking for directions.
It's true. And I think it just shows
Yeah,
that language learning is about so much more than grammar rules.
exactly. It's about connecting with people,
Yes.
understanding different cultures,
Uh-huh.
and just navigating the world with confidence.
I like that it's about embracing the adventure.
Exactly.
But let's get back to those practical tips for a minute.
Okay.
If you had to give one piece of advice
Mm-hmm.
to someone who's nervous about asking for or giving directions,
Okay.
what would it be? That's a tough one. I think I would say, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, it's all part of the learning process,
Yeah, we can let that fear hold us back sometimes.
It's like when you're learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
You're going to wobble a bit. You might even fall a few times,
Uh-huh.
but you get back up and eventually you're riding with confidence.
I love that it's all about practice,
Exactly.
and it's okay to make mistakes.
Those mistakes can actually be the best learning experiences.
Right. You remember them?
Just like my story about getting lost in Italy.
That's true.
It makes for a good story.
Yeah, and it makes the whole journey more memorable.
So just embrace those challenges, have fun with it, and keep practicing.
I like that. And remember, there are so many resources out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like if you need help, don't be afraid to ask.
Absolutely.
There are language partners, online dictionaries, you can listen to podcasts.
Yeah, immerse yourself in the language.
It really makes a difference.
And pay attention to how native speakers are using the language.
Yeah, and one thing I found really helpful is learning phrases.
Oh yeah, phrases are great.
Instead of just individual words.
Because you sound more natural.
Right. It's like you said earlier about chunking.
Exactly.
Instead of getting stuck on every single word, you're thinking in bigger chunks.
And it's more like how we actually speak.
It makes it so much easier.
Right. So just remember, language learning is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah,
Enjoy the process and don't be afraid to ask for help.
that's a great way to put it.
And remember, it's about the connections you make and the experiences you have.
I love that.
So get out there, explore, have conversations, and embrace the adventure of language.
What a great note to end on.
Thanks for joining us today.
For this deep dive into asking for and giving directions in English.
Yeah, hopefully you learned some new things.
Some new phrases or some tips for pronouncing those tricky words.
Yeah, and don't forget to have fun.
Yes. Language learning should be fun.
So until next time,
Be sure to subscribe to Learn English Naturally for more English lessons and tips.
see you next time.
Bye.